Hey everybody, welcome back to Whistle Thicket. Tom here. And yes, I am inside my salvaged greenhouse. I've been working on it. But I'm not talking about the greenhouse in this video. I am talking about a new adventure for me in homesteading, and that's beekeeping. I am not a bee expert. I am a bee beginner. But if you're watching this video, you probably are too. I've had a really cool bee mentor. We actually have a beekeeping store about a half an hour away from my house, which is pretty crazy. So I've gone there to get supplies. I have most of my hive components, my bee tools. I'm getting my bees in about 3 weeks. I'm learning a lot, which is really cool. There's some terms I'm learning as a starter, I guess, beekeeper, that I want to share with you, because I'm learning that beekeeping has its own language, basically, its own vocabulary at the very least. So I go to the beekeeping store and I sound like a dummy because I don't know what things are called. So I am going to share some terms for the new beekeeper that I think are pretty important. So let's get down to it. So the first term that we all need to get as beginning beekeepers is the word apiary. That's right. Apiary is a fancy word for saying bee yard. A lot of people around here just say bee yard, but if you want to sound really fancy, you can tell your wife, if you need me, I'll be in the apiary. So that's what I'm going to say. The scientific name, I believe the genus for bees has the word api in it, I believe. I think that's where they get that from. So apiary is our first word for beekeeping. Our second word is going to be bee bread. So again, I'm learning all of this stuff right now. So bee bread is what the nurse bees use to feed the young bees, the larvae. And it's a mix of honey, pollen, and royal jelly. So the next term I've learned is called bee space. So if editing worked out, bee space is right underneath here. Whoa. But if it didn't, it doesn't show up. So this is what bee space is. Bees like a narrow range of gaps in order to crawl through in their hive. It's 6 to 8, I guess, millimeters, which is pretty small. If it's less than 6 millimeters, they're going to close that gap up by making wax and propolis. If it's too big, they are going to start building extra comb, which, if you're trying to organize your hive, you want the bees to build their comb where you want them to. Okay, so here's a term that you probably have already heard, is BEESWAX or BEESWAX. That's basically what the bees are using to build their comb. I got a chance to go see my first hive ever in my life up close a couple days ago last week, and the bee wax did not look anything like I thought it was going to be, but it was really cool. So I'm very excited for my bees to start making their own beeswax very soon. Our next term is brood. Brood is just talking about all of the larvae in your bee colony. So a lot of people call the bottom box the brood box. That's where your queen is going to be hopefully laying her eggs. So brood is just talking about all of your larvae and your eggs. So another term that my bee mentor has been using is BURR comb. And basically BURR comb is where bees start building extra comb where you don't want it to be. So that can happen a lot on the queen excluder, which is a part of the beehive that basically blocks the queen. You don't want BURR comb, because BURR comb, again, is going to take away energy from your hive that could be used to making comb where you want it, and it's going to slow down your honey production, which you don't want that to happen, right? So if you hear the word colony, that's just your entire beehive. The hive colony, so right, this is your queen, your drones, your worker bees, your larvae, your eggs. It's the whole hive. So colony is just, hey, this is everybody I'm counting that's inside the beehive right now. Another important term that I've learned is drawn comb. So the bees make the comb, but when you first get frames, it's just a wax foundation. And the bees have to draw the wax and make that into a drawn comb. So a drawn comb is really awesome to get at the start of your hive. So if you have a bee mentor, ask them nicely, hey, can I get a frame of a drawn comb? Because your new hive you get is going to use that drawn comb already, and they'll have a nice jump start on building their hive. If they don't have the drawn comb, first they have to make it, and that can take a while. So a drawn comb is like a head start for your hive. Another term is drone. You may have heard this. A drone is just a male bee. There aren't a lot of drones in a colony. They only have one purpose, and that's to mate with a queen. So drones are just the boy bees. There aren't that many of them. Most bees are female, if you didn't know that. So the flight path is the path that the bees take in and out of their hive. From what I've read and talked to some bee people, bees do not circle their hive in order to enter it. They just go straight in and out, but they have a established path that they take. So again, you don't want to put your beehive right where people are going to be walking in front of it, because you're going to be blocking the flight path. Okay, here's a term everybody knows, honey. So honey is what the bees make from the nectar of flowers, and that's why we love honey, or love bees, is because they make honey. But bees do not make the honey for us. We just take advantage of the bees. The bees are making the honey in order to get through the winter. That is why they are making the honey, is to survive. And we're just benefiting from their hard work. If you want to get into bees, you have probably heard this term and wondered, what is it? So here it is, a nuke. What is a nuke, or sometimes it's called a nucleus hive? A nuke is basically a small starter hive that's man-made. It's usually only 4 to 5 frames, and it has a queen that has already been accepted. So that's what a nuke is. It's a starter hive that has an accepted queen. I think I said this term once already, but propolis. So bees make a lot of other substances besides honey. Propolis is one of those substances, and I guess the main ingredient is tree sap, and they use some other plant material to make propolis. The point of propolis is to close any gaps inside the hive. You need a hive tool to separate your bee boxes for your hive with your supers, because the bees build propolis in those cracks, and it's like little cement basically. So that's what propolis is, and there's lots of studies on it. I guess people use propolis for some antibacterial and antifungal, and there are people that will even buy the propolis in pill form and things like that. But that's what propolis is. Here's a term people don't like to have to do, but it's requeening, or just requeen. So sometimes your hive does not accept your queen. Sometimes your queen dies, it gets old, and your hive does away with the queen. But requeening is when you have to replace a queen. You have to special order the queen. You don't want to do this, but it's a term to know at the very least. So requeen, that's a important term as well. I got one more term for you, and that's swarm. Swarming is when part of your bee colony leaves your hive. That can be because your hive has gotten too big and there's not enough room in the hive, or maybe your bees just don't like something about the hive. Sometimes the old queen will leave with the hive. Sometimes a colony will swarm several times, but a swarm is a good thing if you're a beekeeper, because if people know you're a beekeeper and they have a bee swarm, they'll call you and you can get a free hive, and hives cost some money if you have to order them. So swarm is not necessarily a bad term if you're a beekeeper. I hope you guys have learned some stuff about the terminology of beekeeping. There's a lot more terms I'm learning, but I just want to share it with you. On purpose, I did not talk about the parts of a hive because I'm going to do a separate video on that. So I'm hoping to do that soon. I have my whole hive. I just have to buy paint for it. I'm working on my bee yard, or apiary. See how I use that word? I am excited about beekeeping. It's probably one of the more exciting things you can do on a homestead. It is expensive to get going. I've been saving my money, but I think it's going to be worth it. There's so many products you can make from the bees, and you just learn so many things. Patience. I am excited to get my bees going in 3 weeks or less. So thanks for tuning in, and yeah, I'm just having a great time being a homesteader. And it's March. We've had some snow. I think it snowed twice in the last 3 days. Nothing crazy. On the high mountains around here, we have peaks from our house we can see that are about 5,000 feet. There's even a 6,000 footer that I'm looking at. They have snow on them. We may get snow on Monday or Tuesday even, so it is spring, but I think winter is still trying its last attack on spring here. But yeah, just enjoy your day, and we'll see you next time.